So welcome everyone. My name is Serena Sanborn. I work at Waterville Creates. I am the programming and outreach coordinator, and we're super happy to have you here. This is our first kind of experiment with a virtual version of our Slice teen program. So this program has been going for a couple years, but usually it's in person. The idea of the program is to show off the talents of all kinds of folks in art careers. So I'm super glad to have Russ here. So Russ has worked with us before teaching, and he is an illustrator and an artist and a graphic novelist, and I don't even know what other titles I could give you, Russ, but a lover of cats and dogs and and then I thought we'd start off just Russ to ask you just a couple questions, okay. And just to have you answer like how you actually began as an illustrator, like what was your what was your training?
Well, how I began. First of all, thanks everybody for coming on this fine Thursday afternoon. I appreciate it. How I began, I've been drawing ever since I can remember. I make this joke, and my mom hates it, but I was probably born with pencil and paper in my hand. I used to draw on the walls, the floor, everything. So I think my training started then. When I was about 6 years old, I grew up in Tennessee, that's where I'm from. There was a local magazine that had let kids submit artwork. So I submitted a piece and it was published, and that kind of gave me the bug to become an illustrator. So my training was, I took all kinds of art courses in high school, and then I went to Pennsylvania College of Art and Design when I graduated high school, and I majored in graphic design, but I minored in illustration because at that time, you couldn't make a lot of money in illustration, but graphic design, you could get a job almost right away. So I worked at a design studio for about 15 years, and while I was there, I became an in-house illustrator. And then that just kind of reignited the flame. So I left about 20 years ago and went out on my own. And I want to do editorial illustration, for Time and all these national publications. But somehow I woke up one morning and everything I did was for the kids market, which I love. So some of my clients are like McDonald's. I worked on the original Plants vs. Zombie game. First I write and illustrate picture books, and now my focus is kind of shifted in towards graphic novels. Did I answer the question? I kind of went on a rambling.
Yeah, cool. So we do have actually already a question.
Okay.
Do you have other jobs besides illustration to live? In other words, is that your only way you support yourself?
That is pretty much the only way I support myself. I do teach sometimes. I have some private students, and I think a couple actually may be on here. But yeah, illustration is pretty much my primary gig. I still do some commercial work where I'll do a logo and stuff. Because in this business, it really ebbs and flows. It's not a steady paycheck. Some years are great. Other years, you manage to pay the bills. So it's just the nature of the beast. It's like that with even the big name players in the business. Some years they struggle as well, but you find a way through it.
Nice. So someone actually is saying they're just seeing me and not you, but I think what they might have to do is speaker view. So yeah, I'm actually seeing Russ pretty easily, so I'm not sure. Maybe speaker view would help you rather than gallery view. So that's up in the right hand corner. So we already have another question for you, Russ. Do you have other hobbies besides art?
Music. I love music. It's a close second love of mine. I actually play the bass and the banjo, a little bit of guitar. I've been in all kinds of bands, from punk bands to alternative bands to surf instrumental bands growing up. So yeah, music's probably my second love. And movies, reading. By the way, I must say reading is very important in this business. So you should be reading all kinds of stuff, not just graphic novels, but just anything you get your hands on, because it does help expand your mind, and you're kind of doing mental training instead of physical training as far as drawing is involved. So
awesome. And then one last question before you launch into your presentation is, like, do you have recommendations if a young person is deciding they would like to be an illustrator? Do you have any tips?
well, I'll go back to reading. Just read a lot of different things. Just even outside what you like, just try different books. If you like graphic novels, you know, just biographies, anything. And also, I actually have some here. These are the key sketchbooks. I keep these by me all the time, and I'll just kind of hold up some things, but I'm always experimenting, you know, sketching. I'll kind of lean in so you can see this. Always doing studies. Okay, this way, Russ. There we go. Now I got it right. So just anything that pops in my mind. These are actually kind of themes. Let me see here. What's a good one here? You know, like a page of monkeys. So give yourself a theme. So just, you know, if you're really bad at drawing hands and feet, then you should draw 100 pairs of hands and feet. You should, you know, work on the things that you're not good at as well. So just always, you know, always drawing. That's the key. Drawing and reading is the key to this. So.
Okay, awesome. So I think what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna mute and go on off camera, and I can man the Q&A, and Russ is gonna share his screen. And I did see it is better if you're closer to
okay.
like.
All right, I'll lean in. My screen, I have like two screens. I have a tablet that I draw on right in front of me, and then my computer's kind of back a little bit. So I'll try to lean in. So if you can't hear me, just yell.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna mute and stop my video, and you can start screen sharing.
Sounds good. All right, here we go. Let me see, desktop 2. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
It looks good.
Okay, good. I should just talk about the software that I use right now. This is called Clip Studio Pro. And a lot of comic book artists and graphic novelists use this software because you can actually lay out a complete comic book without having to create multiple files. So I bought this a couple years ago, and I just started playing around with it this year. And I just really, really love the software. I think it's better than Photoshop and Painter. It's just more fluid, and it's just easier to use, in my opinion. So again, the software is called Clip Studio. This version is called Paint EX. The EX version allows you to lay out the complete book, and then there's a Paint version or a Pro version, which is just allowing you to do illustration work. I also should say that sometimes the company runs sales, so you can buy it for like $20 or $30. It's really, you can get it dirt cheap. So I'm just going to show you some of my work, and I'm going to kind of go through how I create a piece, and then I hope everybody has pencil and paper ready because you're going to be doing a lot of drawing for most of this session. So here we go. All right, so this is a story I just started writing about these monsters who aren't very good at being monsters. So one of the things I like to do when I start a story idea is sometimes I need to see the characters. And these characters just kind of popped in my head, and I just started sketching them out. I may not use all of these. Sometimes I like to give myself more options than what I really need. Let me move some of these windows around here so you can see these. So yeah, you kind of interview the characters when you're drawing, and we're actually going to do that in a little bit. Again, these are just some monsters. I love drawing monsters and robots. They're like my favorite things in the world to draw. So I don't want to spend a lot of time. And this I did last week. I think it was last week. Again, this is for a different book I'm working on. I'm currently writing. It's going to be a graphic novel, and this is kind of one of the spaceships in it. I kind of want to make it look like almost like a Japanese junker ship, but just for outer space. Again, all this is created in Clip Studio, so it's all digital. This is some of my sketches that I do in the software, just real quick. Maybe spent an hour on these since there's more characters involved. And then what I'll do sometimes is I'll take the characters and paint them. Again, same characters, just sketching. You notice I keep everything loose and just free because I don't get hung up on details. I'm just trying to get the characters, first of all, to look consistent, and then I want to flow to them and a lot of movement. And this one I did last night, actually. This is another story. I usually have like 3 to 6 stories going on at one time. So if I get stuck at one, I can bounce around to the other one. So this is actually going to be a picture book. Whoops. All right, this one I'm going to kind of walk you through my process. So sometimes I sketch in a blue pencil just because I get tired of looking at gray. And this, again, this is all digital. So I use the pencil settings. So I sketch this character out. And then when I get to where I like it, then I usually ink it. Let's see, make sure I click on the right layer here. So again, I just use the pen tool in Clip Studio, which has a real nice movement to it. And I try to keep the line work really loose and free. And then I just start building, start adding color and building the scenes. And I use multiple layers. That way, if I need to edit anything, it's easier to do. Because if you put everything on one layer and you want to move something or change it, it can be quite the task. And sometimes I change colors as I'm working. I kind of have an idea for colors, but once you start putting them on the screen, they can change. You may not like things. Again, and I kind of, a lot of times I work from back to front because sometimes your background colors will dictate what your foreground colors should be. So again, then I started adding color to the main character and slowly building. And then this is gonna add a lot of depth to it. And then I start adding highlights. And then one thing I like to do at the very end, you're gonna see it change tones just a little bit. I'll put a tan layer over it and screen it back. You can see that kind of flatten the color a little bit. And what that does, it's kind of an old master's painting technique where they used to put color in the varnish. It kind of brings the drawing or painting together. And let's see, I think that's it. So let me turn this off. Okay, we're not going to turn it off because I have to go through it. So did everybody get that? Everybody good? Any questions so far before we dive into the workshop?
Looks good so far. I don't see any additional questions, Russ.
Okay. I know I kind of moved through that fairly quickly. Again, I want everybody to be drawing instead of listening to me rambling. So, all right, here we go. So everybody, you're going to need pencil and paper. If you don't have the art kit that Waterville creates handed out, you can just use pencil and copier paper or any kind of paper that you have nearby. All right, let me boot this up. And can we see that okay?
That looks great.
All right. So here we go. Time to develop some characters. So I'm just going to kind of take you through some artists and creators that I really like and who inspire me. Tim Burton, you know him from his movies, but he does beautiful character drawings that I just love. It's almost like a Ed Gorey vibe to him. And Shel Silverstein, he really didn't work in color much, but his line drawing is just beautiful and his characters are amazing. He's also one of my favorite writers as well.
Hey Russ, we have a question.
Okay.
From Suzanne Goulet in class. The egg slinger character, how long did it take you from the beginning to where you are now with that character?
I probably spent a good hour, an hour and a half trying to sketch out the character where I liked it. And that one, that was probably 4 to 5 hours of colorizing because I kept changing colors as I worked back and forth. I get to a certain point like, oh, I really like this color. These are working well together, but this one's not. So usually your first run at a character when you're adding color, it's going to take longer. But once you get that established, especially when you're doing a book or a graphic novel, it goes fairly quickly. So I would say that was a good 5 to 6 hours of work.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome. Good question. Peter Deceive, he did develop a lot of the characters on Ice Age, but he's also a well-known illustrator. Scotty Young, a lot of you guys may know Scotty Young because he's big in the comic book world. He did a book for, oh my God, the name was right there and it just flew out of my head. Oh, Neil Gaiman, called Fortunately the Milk. And if you get the English version, that's the one he illustrated. And then there's another version that just came out that's a different illustrator. But I love Scotty's work. Very loose, fluid, very sketchy. Another artist I really like is Sean Tan. He's Australian. He does these books. They say they're children's books, but we don't know what they really are because they are just so different. And master of color. So if you ever want to just study another illustrator, go to Sean Tan. He's going to be in the picture book section, mostly in the children's section of the library. But beautiful work, beautiful drawings too. Jack Davis, he was big in the 60s through late 80s, did a lot of work for Mad Magazine, TV Guide. He was all over the place. Again, just I love his character design and the way he painted. Chris Grimley is another one. He doesn't use a lot of color. It's very muted, a limited palette, but it's just beautiful. Again, just really exaggerated the features. I love the cat. Mary Blair is one of my all-time favorite artists. She designed a lot of the interior of It's a Small World at Disney World. She did a few picture books, but she mostly, she did a lot of display design as well as some fine art stuff, but her color is just sublime. There's nothing like Mary's work. Bill Mayer was a big influence on me as well. He was big in the 70s through 90s. I think he's retired, but now he does these beautiful paintings. So if you follow him on Instagram, he paints with gouache and it's amazing. But his characters were a big influence on me as well, especially how he drew eyes. And of course, Warner Brothers, love Bugs Bunny. Daffy Duck's my all-time favorite cartoon character. I just think he's amazing. I just love his attitude, but I prefer Warner Brothers over Disney. It's just my preference. I just think it's edgier and they experimented more with the design. So, all right. So I want you to remember this sentence and you can write it down if you like. Casey wasn't frightened, just startled by the sight of the creature. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to write this down or to memorize it. I would have to write it down because I wouldn't be able to remember it. Okay. So getting to know your characters. So here's some things you have to think about. There's physical traits, the gender, ethnicity, age, hair, eye color, body type, height, weight. You have to think about their personalities too. Their strengths, their weaknesses, social status sometimes, their habits, their mannerisms. And also, their background. What's their role in the story? Do they have an occupation? Do they have some conflicts? So you don't just, when you're doing a character for a movie or book or anything, you just don't draw the character and say, here it is. You have to, there's a backstory. Sometimes like I talked about when I was drawing those monsters, that I have to draw them. And then as I draw them, they start telling me their story as I see them. And I can start hearing what they're saying. I know it sounds kind of crazy. Maybe I'm in my studio way too long, but so these are kind of things you have to think about. It's not just drawing a character. There's a lot more to it. And that's why I think reading is very important, especially in this business. This is a worksheet I did. I created this just to help me kind of pinpoint. So this is Monty. This is a children's book I wrote a couple years ago that really didn't go anywhere. I just kind of shelved it. I may get back to it later, but I had to come up with the name, the age. Sometimes you don't know the answers, which is okay. The gender, again, like we talked about in the couple slides before, personality traits. And again, as you start sketching and working on these characters, some of this is going to change. This is not set in stone. Like have his height 2 to 3 feet. He's actually about 10 inches tall. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yeah, Russ, we actually had a question a few minutes ago of like how is there a recommended size that illustrations should be? Like you just said, this guy was 10 inches or whatever, but yeah.
No, are they talking about when you're illustrating for a book or just in general?
I'm not totally sure. That was from Desiree. Desi, if you had a thought, I also was wondering if she meant digitally, like pixels.
Oh, okay.
Not totally sure though. I'll see if she specifies.
I can answer that a couple of different ways. If I'm working traditionally, I tend to work 115% or higher. So that way, when it's shot and it's reduced down, it'll clean up the line work. Ideally, you don't want to work at 100% just because sometimes a publisher will enlarge an image and then it can kind of look like a little rough. So you want to kind of work larger and have it reduced down. And if you're working digitally, you want to work at least at 300 DPI, which is dot per inch. That's the standard in printing. I tend to work closer to 400, again, just because it gives you a better reproduction. And if they want to increase it, it's pretty easy to do. It'll stay nice and clean and sharp. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, so she did say it was what she was interested in for a book, like how that works. So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 115%. If you can work larger, sometimes you're limited by the paper size, especially if you have a 2-page spread, and you can only get like an 11 by 14 sheet of paper. Then you kind of have to keep things like that in mind.
Great. And someone's also asking about where you start with a character, like do you start with the head or where you start? But I think you may end up answering that as we go here, right?
Yes. Yeah. I actually start with the head because that's the personality. Sometimes when I'm drawing the head, I see the body as well, but mostly the head's where I focus on because that's going to give the most emotion and personality.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Someone else said at the end we should tour your studio a little bit too, so I'll remember that for the end.
Okay. It's very small. So, okay, I'll just lean out of the way and maybe I can turn my computer.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Good questions. Okay, so you remember this sentence, right? Casey wasn't frightened, just startled by the sight of the creature. So get your pencils ready. Now it's time to dig into this. So your prompt is, I want you to interview the character. Now, I gave you 2 options for a character. I gave you Casey and the creature. So you can do both. You can do Casey or just the creature. Now, I use Casey for a reason because I think it's gender neutral. So you have to decide if Casey's a female or a male. That's up to you. And the creature, it doesn't even have to have a gender. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about your character and just answer these basic questions pertaining to that line. Now, if you already have a character in mind before we even started, then you can go that way too. You don't have to use the prompt that I gave you as far as the sentence. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes.
While people are doing that too, I had a quick question. So Russ, just so you know, we're at about 1:30, so halfway through the presentation piece. And one of our plans was to stop at 1 and then do more Q&A. But I had a quick question just for the teachers about when your hard stop deadline is for getting students out the door. In case we are going a little long, I'm noticing people are pretty interested and asking great questions. So you could always just let me know in the chat. Thanks.
Maybe this part I'll shorten a little bit, because again, the sketching part is where we have fun. So maybe how about another minute on this one, because there's a lot of steps here that I want to try to get through.
Awesome. So Waterville High School has a 2:10 bus, and other folks have 2:15. So yeah, we could just start sketching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the next prompt then. So there you go. Now do a quick sketch of your character. So it's up to you if you just want to do the head. You can do the head and the body, just whatever you would like to do. So this one I'm going to give you a little bit more time, because I think 5 minutes sound good.
Awesome.
I feel like I should be playing music in the background or something, because I do listen to a lot of music when I'm working. So I'll give you 3 more minutes to sketch. You can always go back and work on it later, so don't feel like this is part of your final grade.
Russ, I had thought about having music, but realized when we were recording it and putting it on YouTube, we can get in trouble.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I never thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
All right, 1 more minute. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So now it's time to push the look of your character. So here's some things that I like to do. You can try using different shapes. So if you drew a square, head, try a round head or an oval head or a triangle. Use a different drawing tool. We tend to get stuck on, like, I use pencils a lot, and if I get stuck, then I may switch to a marker or even a colored pencil or something just a little different. You can stretch or compact your character, which is easy to do if you're working digitally. You can just put a bound or a box around it and stretch and pull it that way. If you're working traditionally, I would make copies of it, and sometimes I cut them apart and stretch them and pull them. And I use a lot of clear tape to tape them back together. You can set a goal how many variations to sketch. I rarely settle on the first sketch. I try to at least do 10 different versions of the character. And this is something I actually do, is try drawing with the other hand, because sometimes you make happy mistakes. I'm right-handed, so when I draw left-handed, maybe I'll draw a nose and I get really super long and kind of get away from me. But I would have never thought to have drawn that if I was using my dominant hand. So just keep those things in mind. And these are different variations of Monty, which you'll see him progress as we do the presentation. So your next prompt is, try to push the look of your character. So draw it two different ways. You can, again, stretch it, compact it, or you can try different shapes, but just try two different ways. I'm gonna give you 4 minutes on this one. Another reason I'm having you work quick is because you don't get hung up on too many details, which can happen. Like, oh, you just sit there and you render the nose for 30 minutes, and then you realize you don't like the look of the rest of it. So just, yeah, work quickly, sketch. And I should have said this at the beginning. Sometimes I don't know what to draw. I don't have anything in my head. So I'll just start making marks on paper. I'll just put squiggles down and then try to start turning them into things. And sometimes that's how I start if I don't have a clear idea for a character. It's actually an old animator's trick. They would sit around and somebody would make a sketch and then hand it to the next person, and they would try to turn it into something.
And I will say, for the teachers out there, we would love to see photos of anything anyone creates. At the end, I'm going to have a little survey that I'll send you that students can fill out, but I'd also love to see what people have created if they are okay with sharing.
That's the hard part. Sharing your work. I'll give you another minute.
Hey Russ, we do have a question.
Okay.
Do you have any recommendations for colleges or art schools that teach illustration?
Uh, well, the Portland Art School is really, really good. Um, there are so many good ones. It really depends what you want, what type of illustration you want to major in. I know there's some that specialize in comics and graphic novels. I believe there is one in New Jersey. That's pretty much all they focus on. Um, I mean, there's Pratt. There's Maryland College of Art. There's a lot of good ones. You just kind of have to do your research and really how far you want to go from home.
Cool, thanks Russ.
You're welcome. I mean, you can get some basics just from watching YouTube, and really you're going to learn a ton just by drawing and experimenting. I mean, don't be afraid to fail. That's when you really learn, when you mess something up. Like, oh, okay, I know not to put those two colors together because this is what happens. Just experiment. There's some people especially in the book world, they didn't go to art school. They just started drawing and started working. So I actually, when I taught, I had a couple of students. I'm like, why are you in art school? You should be working. You're so good. And they do graphic novels. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, finding like your character's overall look. So one thing I like to do is I sometimes, even though I draw a lot of cartoony stuff, I'll try to draw the character realistically, like this first version of Monty on the top left, and then kind of simplify it as I go along. Again, I keep pushing, work with basic shapes. Don't be afraid to change your shapes, add shapes, combine shapes, and sketch quickly. That way you don't get hung up on details. So sometimes I'll start a sketch like I know it's not working right away, and I move to the next one. I'm not going to sit there and labor over it. And don't be afraid to edit. Don't, just because, oh, I really like these eyes, I'm going to continue to use them. No, just keep changing things, trying things. So you ready for your next prompt? I'm going to give you a little more time on this one. So now I want you to modify your character in 3 steps. So if your character is a square shape, maybe go to an oval shape, then to a circle shape. Or maybe it's a triangle shape, then go to a square shape to a rhombus shape. Again, work quickly. I'm going to give you 5 minutes on this one. How's everybody doing with this? Good? Yes, you in the back? I see you. See your hand up.
So good so far, no questions right now.
Okay.
Yeah, Russ, this is so fun, by the way. And I wanted to mention to people that Russ has done live sketching and drawing on Facebook before. I don't know if you're going to do that again at some point, Russ, but.
Yeah, I started when the craziness hit the world in March. I may do it again starting in March, just on a Friday. Yeah, I was doing it on Facebook, and then also on, people are asking me to do it on Instagram, so I may do it both.
Yeah, it was awesome because you invited people to follow along and they could sketch what you were sketching. It was cool.
Yeah, we did that, about 2 months, something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
I did post those videos on Facebook, or not Facebook, but YouTube. There's one drawing I did that it just fell apart from the beginning, which was, that's what happens. Everything you do is not great. You do your fair share of bad pieces. So yeah, I forget what it was, but it was bad from the beginning. But it was fun, and people are like, "Oh, I'm so glad to see that the professional have their bad moments too." It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example because, you know, failing is part of part of creating art. So
I think that's the most important part. Because, you know, again, when I talked about a couple slides ago, it's you learn from your failures and your mistakes. And it's those who are afraid to make those mistakes that kind of get stuck. They don't really advance.
And Russ, here's just a time check. We have about 15 minutes until 2 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll move this one along. How about another 30 seconds? Because this next one is the one you're going to need about 10 minutes. Maybe we'll have to shorten that to about 7. Okay. All right. Here we go. So now it's time to add some emotion to the character. This is probably the most difficult part of it because you may fall in love with the character and you start exaggerating and changing the face and you realize, oh, the nose isn't working or the eyes aren't in the right place. And then you have to kind of start all over and adjust things, move things around. So this is one thing I like to do. It's just, you just draw the heads and you can draw real quickly. I wouldn't draw the full body because again, it's the face that's going to really convey a lot of the emotion. I know the hands and some of the body language ties into it, but the face is going to be the key. All right. So now I want you to sketch your character with different facial expressions. So let's do 4. And you're probably thinking, well, I need some reference. This is one of my favorite reference points for facial expressions. It's Jerry from the old Tom and Jerry show. And I think it's just brilliantly done. It's just beautiful sketches, but they're real quick. So you can use this as a reference point. So draw 4 different expressions. And okay, so I'll give you about I'll give you about 7 minutes to do that. And I do have a mirror in my studio. Usually when I'm looking at it, making faces is when my wife walks in and asks what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I don't even want to know. It's like, I'm okay. If you're interested, you can find this Jerry facial expression chart. I believe I got it from Pinterest.
Russ, do you have in your studio space, I see you have sketches. Do you have things like this up for your reference or books that you look at or?
Yeah, the Jerry piece, I have a board to my left that has a bunch of like reference things tacked up to it. Of course, I don't see it on there because I have a bunch of other junk on top of everything. Yeah, then there's reference books. Again, you know, Google search is good. If you don't have a mirror, or you're just like, I need to figure something out real quickly. Just do, you know, person crying. But yeah, I do have some reference books in the back on the shelf that I can go to as well.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome. So you have about 3 more minutes. All right, you have about another minute, and then we'll move on to the next one. Okay. Let's go to the next one. We're almost at the end of this. So let's talk about clothing. So clothing is very important when you're designing a character. So, you know, one thing I like to do is just try things. So like at Monty here, he didn't put the sketch on where he actually had a suit since he's so hairy. So I kind of switch things around. If he's hairy, I'll put clothing on him. If he was fully clothed, I may try him just scales or body armor or something. Just try different things. If they were, you know, if like the character was wearing pants or jeans, then try a dress or a suit. If it's an alien in a spaceship, how about overalls? It doesn't have to be all space suits and everything. And sometimes, you know, your patterns and your colors are going to separate the characters from each other and from the background. So you have to keep that in mind. And also patterns can help tell a story, a subtle story with the characters. Like if it's, I don't know, if it's a dog who loves everything, maybe it wears a coat with little hearts on it. Just little things like that to help enhance the personality and tell the story. So this one I'm going to give you a little bit more time. So now place your character in different clothing. So let's try 3 different pieces of clothing than what you have now. Now, if you didn't draw the body, you're just focusing on the head. So you may just want to put the head on a suit, maybe you know, armor, or maybe an alien body, or just try different things. Just mix it up. So have some fun with this. So it's 1:51. So let's stop at, well, it won't be full 10 minutes. I'll give you about 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes on this one. Again, just work quickly, just sketch. Don't get hung up on details.
And Russ, I did have a question that I kind of missed in the chat is, what do you feel that you have to have for drawing or creating? Like, what can you not live without?
As far as a tool or just knowledge?
Yeah, I think tools,
supplies, materials. For me, it's definitely pencils and sketchbooks. I think that's very important to me. I didn't start sharing my sketchbooks until like the last 4 or 5 years because they're kind of personal. They're like your little journal, visual journal. Also, for developing characters, learn how to draw the human body. That's very important. And I think if you can draw the human body and a human face really well, you can draw anything.
Cool. And someone asked if you had a drawing tablet, and if you do, what model is it?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. I forgot to cover that when I was talking about the software. I know there's like, you can use an iPad. There's also, I think, Windows. Microsoft has a couple of tablets. Wacom is the big one, or Wacom, depending on how you want to say that. That's one that a lot of people use, but that's like I think it's $3,500 now. I bought one called an XP pen, and I paid $500 for it, and it works just as good as a Wacom. And this one, I think, is a 22-inch, and it has the side buttons. It came with 2 pins, a glove, chargers. They run specials on it as well. So it's the XP pen.
Awesome. And I have a question from a teacher who says, my students have a difficult time sketching. They want to finalize their work. Could you possibly demonstrate a quick sketch so they can see how fast you move? I'm not sure if we're set up to do that, but maybe.
Oh, I can do that. Yeah. Let me get through. I got one more slide, and then I'll do a quick sketch. How's that?
That's great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's the key. You kind of get hung up on things when you're first trying to get an idea out of your head. And you just have to kind of break the habit.
Yeah, it's one of the things I find really difficult when showing people how to draw, or just emphasizing that sketching and making light lines at first is so important, so you can just get an idea yourself of where the actual line you want is going to be.
So what I may do is just, we'll do this for another minute, and then I'll show the last slide, and then I'll do a quick sketch.
That's great. And I think we're doing good on timing, although I realize we could have done this for like 2 hours happily.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just a small part of a longer presentation for this. Yeah, we could have, yeah, definitely 2 hours. I hope everybody's having fun.
Yeah, me too. I'll be curious to see when we send out our survey what people think.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. That way I can do a quick sketch before schools have to catch their bus. Let's see. So there's no prompt after this one, just some other things you can do. Put your character in different poses. Again, you may have to modify the body because it may not be working in certain poses. Also, place it in different environments, which is just fun to do. You know, I like him driving this little car, and play around with color variations. Don't get stuck on like, oh, all monsters have to be green. Actually, Monty turned out to be this grayish blue color. And I did a little studies, tried him yellow, tried him pink, tried him more human color. Just playing around, just try different things. Again, don't get stuck on one look. Okay, I'm going to do a quick sketch. Let me see. How did I? Okay. All right. Am I back to the Clip Studio? Let me see here. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, looks good.
All right. So, all right, let me see here. Where's my pencil tool? Let me see how that's going. No, it's too dark. Okay. So I have no idea what I'm going to draw. So I'll just show you what I was talking about. If you have no idea, just start. Just start making. Okay. Then I'll just screen this back. All right, let's see what's coming in. All right, so this one, let me put a new layer. Again, I have no idea what I'm drawing. I just put some shapes down. I guess it's going to be a person. I'm not worrying about detail. Just I put a little value just to get some separation. And then what I'd probably do is maybe ghost this one back, create a new layer. All right, let's see. Do I like this? Needs a little more movement in the nose, it's too rigid. And maybe needs a unibrow. Anybody has any questions while I'm drawing, feel free to ask, because you're not going to interrupt me.
Russ, my quick question is, right now you're just using a mouse as your, is that true? Like in your hand, or you have okay.
Yeah, I'm using this pen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I kind of thought so, but it sounded like the background had a
Yeah,
Sound.
it's me clicking on the screen.
Ah, okay.
And then again, it's like, okay, now I'm starting to see what's happening here.
We do have another question.
Okay, far away.
Yeah, how do you decide where you need to add movement in a character?
If it just looks like it's really stiff, like it's a block of granite, then you kind of have to go in and start moving things around. Especially, I used a lot of straight lines, so this character was getting stiff looking. So now I'm just going to really exaggerate things.
Nice. And Abby V also asks, would you recommend copying others' work as you work towards your own style?
Definitely. I copied a lot of comic book artists growing up, and like Mary Blair I'd copy, and I love Batman and Spider-Man and all those superheroes. I did a lot of copying of Warner Brother cartoons, drawing Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, even some Disney stuff that I really liked. So yeah, just try different things. One thing you do if you go to art school is you will have to duplicate a painting by a famous artist. Well, that's where you learn quite a bit as well. So this guy's going to turn into more of a Frankenstein. That's what I'm starting to see here.
I do have another question from Ariana. Are there better pens than others? And I'm wondering, I think maybe that means like the digital type.
If you mean digital, I mean, everybody has their preference. I really like this XP pen, so I'm kind of sold on that, on this brand for a while. Again, I like that it's, you're not breaking the bank by buying the tablet. As far as drawing pens, let's see. What do I use quite a bit? I use Sharpies quite a bit. Again, you can buy a pack of Sharpies for like what, $5. I love Sharpies. These Uniball pens I use quite a bit. They were Uniball. What is that? I can't even read. Oh, Uniball Vision Ultra Fine Micro. I use these quite a bit. Okay, I go this way. And I also have some traditional pens, like Crowquill pens, dipping pens that you just dip in the ink. Those are a lot of fun because you can't be too clean. Sometimes the ink splatters and it does something interesting.
Cool. And we have another question. How do you get your work published? That's a good one.
That is a really good one. You have to send out like promo pieces. You're always, you have to go to conferences. You have to talk to, when you go to conferences, you have to talk to people. You just kind of have to get your face and name out there. As far as promo pieces, I send a lot of postcards. I do mailing promos where I email things out. I actually have an agent, so she does a lot of this stuff as well. So there's no one way to do it. You just kind of have to, kind of chip away at it, especially in publishing, because publishing is really hard. It's hard to get noticed because so many people are doing it. So now what I'm going to do is I may just kind of cut this. Remember I talked about cutting things and moving them around? So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm actually going to turn off some of these layers.
Oh yeah, we have another question. What is your favorite book that you've illustrated?
It's always the next one. It's a really good question. I get that one quite a bit. Because when I'm done with a book, I'm really done with a book. Because usually a picture book, sometimes it may be a year of you working on it. And then you just kind of get tired of it. And then once it's published, I don't open the box when they come in. I won't look at it for about 2 or 3 months because I will pick it apart because I'm that critical. Now, if you're working on a graphic novel, some of those you're working 2 to 3 years on just the artwork.
That's also another good question, Russ, is how long on average do you work on, say, a children's book, or like what's the amount of time you spend?
If I'm writing one or if I'm actually illustrating?
I guess maybe you can answer both of those.
Okay. If I'm illustrating one, it really depends on the publisher's deadline. Like I did the Puppy Pirate books. I don't know if anybody knows those books. I had to do one of those in 2 weeks because the publisher messed up the deadline. And it's Penguin Random House, so you don't go no, because they'll just find somebody else. So I did the whole book in 2 weeks. It was 30 pencil drawings. And then when I'm writing a book, sometimes they, you have an idea that may come out in 15 minutes. I think Ferdinand the Bull was written in 15 minutes. Other times it's years. There's a couple stories I've started 5 years ago. They're still in a drawer that I haven't done anything with because I kind of hit a wall with them. So I hope that answered your question.
That's great. And let's see, our timing is some students may be having to leave at this point, which is okay. I think we'll maybe answer some more questions, and we'd also love to see your studio space a little bit. So if folks have a few more questions, I see that we have some participants have to drop off, but okay. we'll definitely record this and send you all a link.
Okay, thanks for attending. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I also have to say, I really think the questions were great. People had some really great questions.
Oh, they were great questions. Any additional questions? Because I'll stay as long as you want.
I don't see anything at the, I think you may have answered this, but do you have a certain tablet that you use?
Yeah, I use the XP Pen tablet.
Awesome.
So now I'm going to get some more movement in the neck. I thought it was a little too rigid. So this all started from that little, 5-second drawing. So this started with that. And we spent, 10 minutes on this? 15?
Yeah, it's really cool to see how you're changing the character, how he all of a sudden, I think he might have looked away, but all of a sudden he had the bolts in his neck.
So this is what I mean, not getting stuck on something, just like, okay, let's try it. So what I may do now is just... Oh,
we have another question.
Okay.
Do you have any quick tips for putting a portfolio together?
Yeah. Start with a strong piece, have a strong piece in the middle, and end with a strong piece. Because the beginning, the middle, and the end is what they're going to remember. Definitely the last piece you show, and you're only as good as the weakest piece you show. So if you show something just as a filler and it's not very good, that's going to stand out.
It might be that we should also answer, what does that mean, a portfolio? I don't know that every student might know that. Maybe they do.
Well, a traditional portfolio was a book you used to carry around. It had all your pieces of art in it. It had sleeves, clear plastic sleeves you put the artwork in. You need probably 10 to 12 pieces, and you would go and meet with art directors and creative directors and show your work and talk about it. But now you can just pretty much do it online. You can post things on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Instagram is great for showing your artwork. Again, just don't slap something on that you're not proud of. Yeah.
Someone else asked, Russ, what is the most frustrating thing about your work?
Most frustrating thing. That's a really good question. I've never been asked that one before. Well, I think sometimes, like I talked about in the beginning, sometimes you're super busy and other times you're not. And then, you're always second guessing yourself. That's pretty frustrating, but that's just the nature of being an artist.
Oh yeah, someone said, which model of the XP pen is it?
I have the 22E Pro, I think it's called.
They just came out with a 24-inch. So now I'm trying to get a little more life in his mouth.
I just wanted to also let people know that at the end of the presentation today, I will be sending an email with a survey, which I realize you may not fill in today, but we'd love to have you fill in as soon as possible. And I will send that out probably after this. Somebody also asked diplomas. Like, do you, I guess, do you have diplomas? I don't know.
I didn't get a diploma. Yeah, I did get a diploma. Did I get a diploma? I just went to an art school. It wasn't like a college where you had academic courses, which I kind of wished I did in some ways, especially since I started getting into writing later. But it's all about your portfolio. I mean, I honestly, I don't think they care if you have a diploma. If you can draw and paint really well and tell a story visually, that's all that matters.
Awesome. Someone asks, when illustrators are hired, is there a pay scale? Can you dictate your own pay or money? And does this happen only once you're established? And there's another part, does each publishing house have their own pay scale, or are they very different? P.S. I loved watching your process.
Thank you. Yeah, they're very different. Each publishing house has their own, what they can pay. You know, some houses are bigger than others, which means they have bigger budgets to smaller budgets. When you're starting out, no, you pretty much take any job and every job you can get because you want that experience and you're going to start building your portfolio. I mean, I'm like friends with Dan Santat, who won the Caldecott. If you don't know what the Caldecott is, it's almost like the Oscar for illustrators and picture books. So he can pretty much do whatever he wants and charge whatever he wants. When you win awards and you start becoming like Ryan Higgins, he lives in Portland. He's a friend of mine. You know, he's a New York Times best-selling author, illustrator, so he can pretty much dictate what he wants to do. So, but those guys worked really, really hard. I know Dan, I think I talked to him a couple of days ago. He did like 14 books in 1 year, which is just crazy. Doing 3 books in 1 year is kind of crazy, but he did 14 just to kind of get his name out there, and he kept working and working. So now he's reached the point where he can do whatever he wants.
Wow, that's amazing. So under the diplomas question, it says, for students, are there certain diplomas, I guess, that you'd recommend? I think that's how that.
I don't really get hung up on the diploma thing. I think if it's a good school, I think if it's a good school and they have a good program, and then, you know, some of the people who graduated work, that to me, that's what's most important.
And then I have another question for you. How many books have you done?
I have done 30 books.
Awesome.
Which sounds like a lot. Until again, I was talking to Dan. He's done 120. I'm like, oh, Dan.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
By the way, Russ, I'm really amazed at your ability to draw and talk.
Oh.
I find it's different parts of our brains that we're using, and it's like really great that you can do those 2 tasks at once.
It might be because I talk to myself a lot because I'm I'm alone during the day, or I'm talking to the cats.
That's great.
So again, you know what? We spent 20 minutes on this, and we started with that, and then we went from that to that to that. I guess nothing on that layer to that.
Whoa. So cool. I love what happened with his mouth, and his forehead just got bigger and bigger. So
Yeah.
we have some comments for you that it was fabulous, and thank you to both of us, which is so nice.
Oh, that is nice. Thank you.
One of our teachers, Jessica Jones, says, wow, everyone here loves your characters. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And so I think what we could do, so it's almost 2:15. What we could do, Russ, if you don't mind, maybe telling us what's in your studio, since people wanted a little studio tour. By the
Right.
way, Winslow Junior High says thank you. And maybe I'm also interested in your light table and how I think that's a tool that students may not have seen. Such a cool one.
Okay, well, let's start. I have a really small space. I used to have a larger studio, but I would have to get up and walk around everything. But now I can just kind of wheel back and forth. So this is my bookcase. A lot of my friends, they give me picture books, or I went to book signings. All kinds of reference books, music books. I love robots. So there's 10 robots I just started collecting. Just things that people give me, like, hey, you want this? I never say no. There's skulls. Over here, it's just drawings I've done, sketches. Even though I draw in sketchbooks, I always have scrap paper laying around. So I'll draw something real quick and I'll just tack it up there because, you know, I may like it later, may use it for something. I can show you some of my other stuff that's not cartoony. Let's see, I'll show you these pieces. Of course, when I pull something off, everything falls off the board. So, I mean, this is like a pen and ink drawing I did. This is probably 25 minutes. Just pen and ink. And this is the dip pen. Dip it in the ink and you scratch it onto the paper. This is on a Bristol board.
Wow.
And this I did as a drawing demo. Did a crow. I love crows. This is just a brush dipped in ink and some markers and just some pencil. So I kind of have that stuff hanging up. I have skulls around the studio. There's this guy here, or gal, I'm not sure. No, it's kind of blown out. Let's see, posters, all kinds of junk. Let me turn this. This is a tool chest that has all my art supplies in it. The tiger, somebody gave me at a conference. They made it from a sketch I did. So that's kind of the studio mascot. I have my banjos, some guitars in here, printers. And you want me to talk about my light table?
Even just to show how that works would be great.
So this is a glass top. So let me turn on the switch. What this allows me to do, I can put a drawing down and then put another piece of paper on top of it and draw on top and keep refining that way if I'm not working digitally. It's kind of bright. Let me get sunburned. I do my traditional work over here. Again, I'm like in this little tiny space, so I can just wheel around if I'm doing something. If I'm working traditionally, I need reference. I can just turn around and look at something, or I print it out. So yeah, my studio is really small. I have some paper storage areas, a scanner, a printer. I actually have a little TV in here if I'm working over the weekend.
And Russ, the other thing I thought of is maybe if people wanted to follow your work, what would be a way for them to do that?
You can follow me. I have a Facebook account, but I'm not on Facebook much anymore. But you can follow me on Instagram. I think I'm RussCox_books, and then I'm on Twitter, RussCox_illustration, or I don't think it's illustration. It's ILLUST.
Awesome.
And then there's my website.
I can send that out in the email this afternoon for people. When I send out the survey, I'll send out Russ's information too for people.
I just posted my website. So you can go to my website and you can subscribe to my newsletter, which I kind of put out maybe 2 or 3 times a year.
That's great. Suzanne Goulet says, thank you for the virtual field trip. Awesome.
If my camera wasn't mounted to my computer, I'd carry it around, but then you might get motion sickness. I'm surprised I had the door closed and keep my cats out because they would have interrupted the whole thing. So
your studio is named after a cat, yeah?
Yes, we had this big burly cat you think would roar, but it would squeak. And his name was Otis, and he always just laid around and looked like he was smiling. So that's where it came from.
Nice. Suzanne Goulet says, permission slips needed. Awesome. And then Melissa Burns says, thank you. This was very helpful for our children's book illustration class. Oh, so good. Cool.
Oh.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. Well, you'll have to share what they did.
Yeah, that would be amazing to get to see kind of the different things. I realize in my email I've got some nice work from Jessica Jones's class, so
Okay.
I might share them with Russ if that's okay, so he can see some of the things people created. Okay, anyone else have any other last minute questions for Russ or anything else you want to tell us? Any other information?
No, just draw, keep drawing, read a lot. That's all. That's basically all it is. It's seat time. Expand your mind.
Great. So also we have a thank you from Hampton Academy students for the great experience.
Oh,
So I
good.
also wanted to just real quickly say we will be doing another one of these free slice workshops in February. It'll be on making bristlebots, little robots, with the STEAM state librarian. So she's the science, technology, engineering, and math state librarian. And we're going to ask her a bit about her career and how she started too. And Jessica Jones says I can share some of the works for the students with you. So that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Love to see it.
Cool. So thanks, Russ. This has been totally awesome. I think maybe what I learned is maybe I need to do this earlier in the day so we get a little bit more time and it doesn't feel as crunched for time, though I realize doing this with schools means that people only have a certain amount of time in their day.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just been really great to see your process, to see how it is a character's created. It's very cool. I know it's made me think about how I often create a character or a drawing and I just get set on it looking exactly how I started rather than freeing myself to create more. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so so more people are actually sending me links to what people created, which is great.
Oh.
All right, this has been really fun. I'll just share my video. So thank you, Russ. It's been so great.
Thank you for having me. This was great. I had a good time.
Yeah, me too. I kind of wish that we had planned for longer, but that's okay. It was really awesome.
Yeah.